So this is going to be a little different than the usual content on this channel. I had every aspiration of trying to put together a nice, thorough, in-depth review of the Onewheel Pint and then using it. But yeah, it just never happened. I shot stuff. It looks like this. It's great. We started getting some riding footage and some test footage and all that. And then kind of reality took over and never quite got around to doing it. Also, it's obviously now, what is this, May? We're in week 9 of the quarantine, and I now all of a sudden have a little more time on my hands. And in that time, I've also been using my Onewheel basically every single day. So I thought, what better time than to get together and actually get some thoughts on video. And the more and more I look around at Onewheel content that is already on the internet, I find that these riding videos are actually a lot of fun and pretty chill. So I thought I would go about putting together a bit of a Onewheel Pint review ride along using this format. So as you can tell, the ride is already underway. This is a nice little pretty long loop that I like to do coming out of my house in Kings Park, New York, and then going first over to some trails and then through this what they call a state park, but it's actually the grounds of an abandoned psychiatric center, one of the biggest in the country, and I wrap it up over there. So let's get into the basics. I have a Onewheel Pint. I've had it since October. I've been using it all the time, well, as much as I'm able to. My first impressions in getting it were I really enjoyed using it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was very intuitive and very easy to get the hang of. For me, my background's a snowboarder and a surfer, but was never at all proficient skateboarding or longboarding, even though I have a longboard, but I always kind of wanted to be. The Onewheel, getting on that first time takes like a little trust and a little understanding. But once you understand how to stop the Onewheel, it becomes very, very easy to actually use because you know you can get off. And then when you learn how to bail with 2 feet, even better. And you can get on and off whenever you want. As you can tell on this ride, I'm already kind of cruising out of my neighborhood and coming up on one of the first red lights I'll have to encounter on this trip as I head over to some kind of tasty trails that are nearby. Let me think what to mention here. So this is a little problem I have every now and then, where I go to start up the Onewheel and get it moving, and very, very silly things happen, and it just doesn't want to start. And I really think I'm kicking the right way, but for whatever reason, that happens sometimes. It makes you look kind of dumb, but it's not a big deal. All right, so we are cruising. Something I've noticed as I've been changing riding modes, I've been using Skyline more often now, and it definitely gets the board to go faster, but it does also put me a lot more, because it is going faster, the board is pushing back more, and you kind of get much closer to that razor's edge of nosediving. And because of that, it really kicks up the nose a lot when you're trying to go a little faster. The more experience I have, the more I'm kind of moving away from that and going to just move back, especially when I'm cruising back into that Pacific mode, because I find that actually kind of delivers the most comfortable ride for when you're just going around places, and also the safest ride, which is obviously fairly crucial. But yeah, very early on with riding on the Onewheel, I was blown away by was how many just different types of terrain it can take on without you actually really having to think about it. So like before, I was on really nice paved street. Now I'm on gnarly sidewalk and also popping up and down from sidewalk to street back and forth, and then hitting all sorts of random ruts and marks. In a few seconds, I'm going to wind up coming up on railroad tracks. And it's really kind of crazy just how easy it is to navigate on that stuff. I was watching a Onewheel video where the guy was talking about that the best way to get more comfortable on it is just trust that the board knows what it's doing. So instead of trying to fight it, like right there going over the railroad tracks, instead of trying to fight it, just trust that the board knows what it's doing, and you just have to believe in it like the force. And that again gets into like when you give the board to people that want to try it out and they say, well, how do I do it? And you just go, just trust, just lean into where you want to go and it'll go there, or look where you want to go and you'll go there. And that's 100% true. And it really gets more and more intuitive the more and more you use it. And so that's been a really fun experience for me. The more I've been riding it and the more comfortable I've been getting on it. So right now we're heading up into this kind of weird little mini park that's right by my house, where I can, right now, bouncing over gravel, no problem, and now onto what's kind of like a nicely tended trail that'll then move kind of more into like a single track. And to me, this is the absolute best part of kind of the one-wheel experience, and it's getting that sort of feeling of riding on powder, 365 days a year. Getting on a trail like this and being able to just effortlessly kind of cruise back and forth, go through it is just super duper fun. It's easy to do. My first day on a one wheel, I took it into trails, and while I fell a bunch, it's very easy to get comfortable. The first time I came onto these trails, maybe like 2 or 3 days into riding, I was already able to have a ton of fun and rip through them, and it was great. And now I start getting into more of the single track area where this is all rutted out, there's rocks everywhere, there's little banks and stuff, and it's just super duper easy to kind of lean into stuff and get comfortable. One of the biggest things that I've learned in doing this and coming from a snowboarding background is getting away from this idea of like heel side, toe side, and thinking you need to edge to get control, because you don't. It's a gigantic wheel. All you're doing is really turning with your hips, and the wheel is going to be what's doing all the work. You don't actually need to be driving too much weight into the toes or the heels to actually maneuver. And that just takes a lot of practice to almost unteach yourself after years and years and years of snowboarding or surfing. You're kind of letting it actually ride flat, which is where you don't really have control on a snowboard. But in this case, you actually have tremendous amounts of control. It's where if you get too much onto your toes, too much onto your heels, it's when you're really going to get bucked off of the board, and that's not going to be a good time. But like stuff like this is just awesome. Going through loose trail like this, you could see the leaves blowing all over the place. And this is not a challenge to do. Like you feel very, like for me, I feel very comfortable, smooth, and then there's a log down. And while I could bonk over that, I thought this would be as good a place as any to kind of go for a turnaround. But the same thing, I'm at full speed going down that trail. I see a log down, I'm able to instantly stop in complete control, no fear, no concern. And then this is just kind of pretty sweet lighting, if I do say so myself. Get a little sun coming through, ripping through the trail again. And this is the fun stuff. Like I could kind of hang out in these trails all day and be perfectly content on the Pint. I have no way to compare this to the XR. I've only been on one once or twice, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I don't really know how to compare one to the other. All I know is this, rips perfectly fine in these trails. There are parts of these trails that are more technical and steeper, and I've noticed if there's a lot of leaves down or it's really sandy, the wheel will start spinning out. But I don't know if an XR would do any better with that. So at this point at the ride, I'm like 9 minutes in. I've already covered probably close to 2 miles. And it's just going great. Just enjoying myself. So getting into more thoughts on the one wheel kind of early on. It really didn't take a long time at all to get comfortable using it. And I think I've said this before, but it's a lot like riding a bike or a snowboard in the sense that the more momentum you have, the actually easier it is. When you're moving very, very slow, especially on trail, it's much easier to get kind of knocked off or lose your balance a little bit. Whereas once you have a little momentum going, it's much, much, much easier. So this is a kind of a funny moment of pandemic life is there is another person that I kind of saw on the trail, but not a problem. I brought my trusty face mask. I am masked up and maintaining a large social distance. No issue at all. And also whenever I see people, I try to always kind of like, even before the pandemic, kind of slow down, give them space, because most people think you're from Mars when they see you on a one wheel. They have no idea how you're controlling it, and they also have no idea what sort of control of the board you actually have. So it's really important to kind of make sure to give people, and then especially give cars, a lot of space so they don't do anything silly. But again, coming off of the trail, right over gravel, bouncing all over the place, catching all the bumps with my knees and my ankles, and it's no problem. And now I'm off on the road. And choo-choo, here comes a train coming by. Super fun, super duper exciting. And we're off. So we're gonna take this now off into the next spot, kind of taking this big loop over into what's a state park, but it actually is the grounds of an old psych center. So that's, pretty fun. So now, again, popped up on the sidewalk, no problems. And this is just the stuff that's really fun, especially when you're kind of pushing the speed on the one wheel a little bit, but then coming back into civilization or back into places where you have to move slower. It just is so easy and so controllable at slow speeds, but also around crowds, on sidewalks, and then like right here, just bouncing over train tracks. Like, I think about how horrible this would be to try to do on a longboard or a boosted board or something like that. I'd probably be getting thrown off like 50 times. And then especially like when you see cars and stuff around, like being able to pop into the street, but being able to hold a really, really tight line, because again, the cars have absolutely no idea what you are. So what I always like to do is, especially if I like start getting onto a shoulder or I can feel cars coming, is to slow down off of my top speed, but also to start just running straight and not like trying to carve it all. And I find that gives the cars a little more confidence that they don't think I'm gonna like bomb into the street. And also just good safety sense. Like obviously I'm always wearing a helmet, but also I'm never listening to music or have headphones in or anything like that if I'm gonna be near streets, just because I want that kind of situational awareness if cars are coming up on me or anything weird. Like right now I'm on the shoulder, I could feel the cars coming, but I know I need to do a cross here, so I slow down a little bit, look both ways, and then finally be able to jab in. Of course, I could come to a full stop, walk across the street, but if I could feel the traffic, I can get right across. So here is the entrance to what is called Nessequag River State Park, which is actually the grounds of the Kings Park Psychiatric Center, which was some like mega psychiatric center back in the, 1960s. And it is now since closed. These two buildings over here, I think like halfway houses, but beyond that, it is all just these abandoned ruins of this crazy psych center. The roads here are terrible because they don't maintain them at all anymore. They call it a state park, which just means that there's some walking paths on the state park, but beyond that, it's just these abandoned buildings and kind of like horrible pavement everywhere. So you can see there's a car creeping up on me. I did the same thing. Popped over to the side, slowed down a little bit. Not doing anything nuts. This is actually a good point because I'm riding now for probably like something like 18 minutes because I cut out a few minutes in the middle when it was boring. Speaking of like your feet getting tired, my feet don't get really too tired anymore after doing this a good amount. What I have noticed is in this rider profile Skyline, because it is going faster, it is pushing the nose up harder, and that's kind of giving me this Captain Morgan stance a lot, where my front knee is actually bent and the board is nosed up pretty hard, and that actually puts kind of a little quad pump in there. There's the easy way to fix this is to go slower and really just focus more on carving and kind of enjoying it. The reason I'm not doing that is I was trying to cover a lot of ground in this video and in this ride, and didn't want to kind of miss out on any of that. In the future, I'm just kind of going back into the Pacific rider mode because I really think it handles a lot better and a lot more consistently, and is just much, much safer to be riding in because the infamous nosedive will get you if you are not careful or you're messing around on your phone too much. But yeah, so we are at this point headed around kind of like the main entrance of the psych center. It was this huge grounds, like 180 buildings or something crazy like that, and none of the buildings are actually getting demolished because they built them with so much asbestos that nobody wants to pay for the environmental cleanup. But so for right now, it just means I have this kind of crazy park that's like less than a mile from my house, which makes for really good one-wheeling. But yeah, so I guess this is probably a decent time to start thinking about wrapping this up a little bit. I think the one wheel is probably like the best use of $1,000 I've ever done in terms of actually getting something that's just supposed to be fun. And then it couldn't have hit at a better time too. Like especially with the whole lockdown and all that. You know, I'm running, I'm working out, I'm doing all that stuff. But to just kind of get out on a board by yourself, have plenty of space between yourself and other people, and just kind of cruise, it's awesome. Like I can't surf right now, I can't snowboard right now. But to get out on a board, cruise around is just super duper fun, and more and more I'm playing around with like dumb little tricks and jumping off of curbs and curb nudges and all that stuff, especially inspired by the Corridor Crew videos. It's just a really, really awesome pastime, way to cool down, way to get some kind of meditation on a wheel. And every time somebody asks me, I just cannot recommend getting one of these things enough. You know, as I'm kind of finishing this downhill, you can start seeing the main building of the psych center creeping in the background. And obviously, because this is on that 360 camera, everything's warped out a little bit. But yeah, love the one wheel, love the pint. Going to be following up this video, if this has been at all enjoyable or fun to watch, with some more, because I got some little modifications coming in. I have some other ideas about one wheeling coming in, and this is really kind of fun to do. So yeah, we'll finish it off with a little skid stop, show you the super duper creepy ghost buildings, this gigantic building, and yeah, we'll wrap it up there. Next time, super clear photo. Do it.